Welcome, everyone. My name is Mitchell, and I'm your host from Canadian Geographic Education for today's presentation as a part of our 2025 Adoptship Program, sponsored by our friends at the Canadian Coast Guard. We're excited to be back for a fifth year of this amazing program that brings you behind the scenes for a deeper look at careers and educational opportunities within the Coast Guard and Fisheries and Oceans Canada. For all of our teachers tuning in, feel free to drop a note in the chat telling us where you and your students are tuning in from today. And for all of our students in the audience, make sure to write down your questions and stay with us until the end, as we've got a question and answer session planned. Now, without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce our special guest today, Captain Stacey Trombley. Captain Trombley is the commanding officer of the Samuel Risley, which is a multitaskable vessel that operates within the Great Lakes. Captain Trombley is joining us from on board the Samuel Risley, which is currently in port in Sarnia in southern Ontario. Welcome, Captain Trombley.
Morning.
Well, it's great to have you with us. And to kick things off, we figured we'd ask you about your role as a captain and the different types of responsibilities that you have as the captain of the Samuel Risley.
Absolutely. So as captain, we are overall responsible for the entire operation of the vessel, as well as the well-being of the crew on board. And as a captain, I'm a navigator, so I also do all the ship handling, coming to dock, going away from dock, ship handling when we're ice breaking and buoy tending, and mentoring my navigation officers.
Awesome. So I was wondering if you could take us through your journey towards becoming a captain with the Coast Guard. For example, how did you first discover the Coast Guard, and what other positions did you have before this one?
I've been with the Coast Guard now for 24 years. I started as a officer cadet from the Canadian Coast Guard College. I grew up in Amherstburg, Ontario, and we have a small Coast Guard base there in my hometown. And I got a little bit interested in the boats and what they did down there, and they gave me the information for the Coast Guard College. So I applied, and I was lucky enough to get accepted. We were a small class of 10. So it was really great to have my experience there at the Coast Guard College. And then when I graduated, I joined the fleet here in Central Region, and as a junior officer, as a second and third officer, and I slowly worked my way up, doing different assignments on different vessels up to the position I am now. So I've worked up in the Arctic, doing science in Beaufort Sea. I've worked on small buoy tenders. I've worked on search and rescue. I've done time as chief officer on both the Griffin and the Risley. And I took over the Risley as commanding officer 3 years ago.
Awesome, that's amazing. So did you always know that you wanted to become the captain of a vessel, or is there a moment that you can remember that really inspired you to pursue becoming the commanding officer of a vessel?
Surprisingly, no, that wasn't one of my aspirations when I first started. One of the things that kind of interested me when I first started was search and rescue, and that was kind of where I thought my career was going to go. But then I got introduced to the small buoy tenders and really fell in love with doing aids to navigation and buoy tending. So I kind of changed the way I went and came back to the big ships and started working my way up that way.
Awesome. Well, as the captain of the Samuel Risley, you undertake a lot of ice-breaking operations. What is it like commanding an icebreaker, and what challenges do you face when navigating through harsh and unpredictable weather?
Icebreaking can be fun. Our ships are specially designed to go through ice. The Risley is designed to be able to go up or through up to 3 feet of ice and maintain a speed of 4 knots. She's a very, very good icebreaker. Some of the challenges, though, is we can't always predict what the weather or the wind is going to do to the ice, and the ice tends to move around and will build ridges. And that's a lot harder to go through versus a nice plate ice like you guys will play hockey on. That stuff's a lot easier to go through. But when it starts piling up and there's lots of snow on it, it can make it very sticky and it can make it very difficult to go through. And then it also makes it a lot more difficult for the ships behind us to follow through. So sometimes they get stuck. We got to turn around. We got to go back and relieve some of the pressure on them and try and get them moving and carrying on.
So going through ice like we're seeing in the video here, is it just your ship going through it, or are there a number of different ships kind of going through to break up the ice?
So that day there, we were working by ourselves. It was just us. Sometimes we work with, we've got a few of the U.S. Coast Guard vessels in the area, and sometimes we work with them. We also have the Griffin who works in the Great Lakes, so sometimes we'll work with them. But typically when we're escorting, the last few days we've been going by ourselves. So that's a video of us working with the U.S. Coast Guard, and we were working in tandem to get the Manitoulin out of Buffalo. And so sometimes we're alone, sometimes we work with another icebreaker. Depends on the conditions.
Awesome. And so these were taken. So these videos were taken recently on some of your operations?
Yes, actually, all of those videos were just taken in the last 3 weeks. Within the last 3 weeks. So that was operations there off of Buffalo. And the video before, we were in Lake St. Clair, going back to free 1,000-footer called the Indiana Harbor.
Wow. Awesome. Well, apart from the ice breaking, you also sent me some amazing photos of you and your team painting and revitalizing a lighthouse. Is that something you and your team often get to do?
I always find that that's some of the funnest part of our work that we get to do, because it's outside of the normal operations. So typically the way our schedule works, it's kind of the same every year. We do ice breaking in the wintertime. Once the ice clears out, we go on to doing buoy tending. So the ice sometimes will have shifted the buoys around, and we also have to put the summer buoys in. So we got to go around, clean all that up, put the buoys out so that boating season is ready to go. And then in the summer months, we move on to doing maintenance work. So we'll work on lighthouses, we'll do brushing at some of the sites. And I like these because they're big projects, and really we can see a really great job done at the end of the project. And usually the crew has a good time doing these different stuff because it's outside the norm.
Yeah, you guys, other than painting the lighthouse, what other tasks are there when you're there revitalizing them?
So what we had to do to start was there was a lot of marine growth that had kind of gone on it. So a couple of the first videos there were we actually had to clean it first. So we had to get the pressure washers out, and we get to rappel off the side of the lighthouse, and we're cleaning it up and getting all the growth off of it. And then once it's all clean, then we start painting. So
Yeah,
project there, that lighthouse there took us about 2 weeks to do.
Yeah, so we have the picture of the before up right now, and after the team, this is amazing. It looked after. It's quite quite a difference.
Big difference, yeah.
Yeah. So that's amazing. And so looking back at your journey, you kind of touched on it a little bit. What has been the most rewarding part of your career with the Coast Guard so far?
I just love working for the Coast Guard. It's a great opportunity. You get to work on these great ships. You get to serve Canadians and do a lot of really cool stuff. We get to see some really interesting places. Coast Guard is across the country from east to west, the Arctic, and we really get to see a lot of things that normal Canadians never get to see. We get to spend a lot of time up in Lake Superior sometimes, and in the summertime it's quite beautiful, and no normal Canadians don't get to see those kinds of opportunities. So that's, I think, the best part of this job.
Oh, for sure. Getting to explore Canada, since it's so big, getting to do it as a part of your job makes it a little bit easier to see more of it.
Yeah.
For sure. And so what kind of skills or personality traits would you say that help a captain perform well at their job? And what do you take on ongoing training throughout your career?
So we're always learning, always learning. There's always new equipment that comes out, new technology that comes out. I've been here for 24 years. I'll admit some of my navigation officers are smarter than me when it comes to the technology. I'm a little old school with some of the items, but we're constantly learning. One thing that's huge with this job is being able to multitask, juggling a number of items at the same time, as well as being adaptable. Things are always changing. Programs sometimes changes. We might be going in one direction and then we get a tasking to do something else, and then we got to flip around and change what we're doing or where we're going. So constantly being able to be adaptable, as well as, there's 25 of us that live on board this vessel for 28 days. You got to be pretty good of a people person. We spend more time sometimes with my coworkers than I do with my family at home.
Yeah, there's not many places to run and hide on the boat, I'd imagine. So getting along with it seems like the best way to do
it. I have my cabin, but yeah, it's, we're 25 of us are sharing about 250 feet. So it's, you got to learn to get along with people.
Yeah. Well, great. And so just some final questions. So what is the best advice you have for the students in our audience today who may be considering a career with the Coast Guard and maybe even one at sea?
If you're thinking about it, give it a try. Doesn't hurt to definitely give it a try and see if it's for you. It's definitely an adventure. I have, enjoyed every day that I've been here. Don't get me wrong, there are some struggles, just like anywhere. There's some stressful days, but those few days are definitely outweighed by the good ones. And it's a great opportunity. It's a great career, and there's multiple ways that you can do it. You don't have to come in and be a captain or an officer. We've got entry level positions as deckhands and oilers. Engineers get to do all the mechanical stuff. So if driving the boat's not your thing, but you like tinkering with mechanics and fabricating things, engineering is a great way to go. And we also have a logistics department. We need to be fed and we need to be taken care of while we're here too. So we have a team that basically feeds us all month, and that's what they do, and they do a great job at it. So there's lots of variety, lots of opportunities, and I think it's a great career for anybody thinking that that's what they'd like to do.
Yeah, sure. And the college is free, which doesn't hurt. So
yes, yeah, my parents were quite happy about that. And you're an employee from day one, so it's a great, again, another great opportunity to go through the college. I made some excellent friends from my 4 years there that I'm still friends with today. So the school is a really great place as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing all of that with us. And since we have so many classes joining us, I figured it'd be a good time to turn it over and try and get some questions from some of the classes that we have with us. So first in my list, I see Miss Rutledge. So I will bring Miss Rutledge on screen, and if you guys have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask them.
You sure?
Good morning, Miss
Rutledge. Yeah, these guys are a little bit shy. Do you guys have any questions at all about this? One of our students loves the ocean, and he always talks about anglerfish. I was wondering, do you guys get to see any interesting types of fish or sea creatures out there that you ever have to feel?
So some of our here in the Great Lakes, my ship pretty much primarily stays here in the Great Lakes. So we get to see the Great Lakes animals and fish. But out on the East Coast, I did my first sea phase out on the Hudson, who actually does science work. So they get to kind of interact with the scientists and see a lot of the work that they do. And we vessels that do offshore fisheries work as well. So we provide the ships and provide that support to them. So they go fishing and they get to, bring up all the different species there, as well as, as you're sailing out there, I saw whales, I saw dolphins. So yeah, it's there's definitely lots of scenery and lots of things to see, especially depending on the program you're working in.
Wow. Thanks. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else, you guys? Or this is a great opportunity. Thank you very much. It just gets to show the practicality of all the skills that you get to learn, and it's
Well, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
Bye. So next we have a class from Northcott Public School, or Prairie School, sorry. Did you guys have any questions for Captain Trombley?
Okay, go ahead.
What's the biggest challenge on being a ship?
The biggest challenge I find personally is we can't control the weather, and the weather tends to, if it's bad, it affects how we operate and it affects where we can go, and that's one of the biggest challenges, is being able to still get work done in and around the weather that I can't really control. So when it's too rough and too windy, it's not safe for us to do certain operations.
Cool. All right.
Thank you. What happens if it gets too foggy?
If it gets too foggy, that happens quite a bit. Actually, we had a lot of that this month with the changing temperatures. So we have radar on board so that we can see through the fog, as well as we got a nice big loud foghorn that we got to sound off so that other ships can hear us. And we also post extra lookouts. So we have extra people that might go on the bow to take a look, or so that they can see things a little bit closer, because from where we are in the wheelhouse up to the bow is at least 75 feet. So we put someone up there so that they can hopefully see things a little sooner, as well as hear it as well, because up here in the wheelhouse, we're all enclosed and we might not hear some of those other sounds coming from the other ships.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are lighthouses really important?
Lighthouses are very important. They help navigate and guide mariners from across the lake. So at night when they're flashing, that indicates to people that are navigating of where they are. So they are very important.
Okay, thank you.
And they're usually marking dangers.
Okay.
Well,
How big can some of the ships get?
Sorry?
How big can some of the ships get?
in terms of what?
Here in the lakes, or Coast Guard altogether?
In the lakes or the Coast Guard?
In the lakes.
In the lakes.
In the lakes. So the biggest ships that navigate in the lakes are about 1,000 feet long, and they're constricted because of the canals. So the St. Mary's, between Lake Huron and Lake Superior, there's a lock there. So you can't just steam right up to it. And same thing between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. You got to go through a series of locks to get from one lake to the other, and they're set to a certain size. So the biggest ships in the lakes can be 1,000 feet.
Can we just ask one more question? And this will be our
Sure.
last. I know there's lots.
How fast can your boats go?
My
How
ship
fast
can.
can you go? Sorry. Go ahead.
So my ship can do 14 knots with 4 engines online. Normally, outside of ice breaking, we only run 2 engines, and we're usually about 12 knots. So a knot is approximately 1.8 kilometers, so almost double. So not very fast, about 24 kilometers an hour.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thanks for letting us get so many questions in.
No problem. Thank you for joining. So next, it looks like we have some questions from Miss LeBlanc's class. So good morning.
Come on up.
If an animal or like a whale goes under your ship, can it flip it?
No. No, we're pretty heavy. We're over 2,000 tons, so we're pretty heavy, and and also we're made of steel. So unfortunately, I don't think they would make out so well.
Okay, Raphael.
How do your icebreakers work?
So very good question. So our ships are built with a special designed bow that allows us to ride up on the ice, and the weight of the ship actually crushes the ice.
Oh.
Thank you.
Why do you say knots?
Why do I say knots?
Yeah, for speed in kilometers.
Because that's what speed in the maritime world is measured in, and it was because of the old sailing days. They had a board that had knots on it, and they would count it with time, and the amount of knots that went over a certain period of time would then be how many knots you're doing.
Well, I think we'll get 3 for now, and then we'll make our way back if there's time at the end, if that's okay. Thank you very much, just to make sure that we can get to each class.
Thank you.
So next we have Charles Howitt, a class from Charles Howitt. Did you guys have any questions for Captain Trombley?
Oh, they're
I
muted.
believe you're muted.
Oh, they're muted.
There you go.
Hello.
You're muted. There you go.
Hi. Have you ever been in like a really dangerous situation?
Have I ever been in a very
When you were-
dangerous situation?
Have I ever been in a very dangerous
Situation.
Have I ever been?
Have I ever been?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say, there's been some times where it's been challenging, but I wouldn't say it was necessarily very dangerous. We try and make sure that we're very safe on board and that we always maintain safety because we all want to come home at the end of the day.
Have you seen any effects of climate change while you were on your ship?
You were. Go ahead, Stacey. Try again.
Have you seen any effects of climate change while you were on your ship?
Yeah, we actually
Have you
do.
seen any?
Yeah, we actually do.
So we really see it big time with the ice breaking seasons. Last year and the year before, we virtually had no ice in the Great Lakes. We did very minimal ice breaking in the wintertime. This year we're back to somewhat normal. The ice coverage is kind of normal this year, but we do see shorter winters overall. So there is we definitely see the effects, as well as the overall temperatures of the water, even in the summertime, getting higher and then staying warmer longer into fall and early winter.
Thank you. One more.
Do you catch fish on board?
On our ship, no, we don't. We don't do science typically, so we're not catching fish here. But we do have other ships that they do catch fish for scientific purposes. Mitchell, you're muted.
Well, thank you very much for asking those questions. So it looks like we have a queue at the Pioneer School, and we will get some questions. Good morning.
Good morning, Captain, and thank you for sharing with us. We've got 3 questions lined up here for you, Captain. First one.
Why is the ship called a vessel?
Why is the ship called a vessel?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. We always just do.
All right, we'll get the next one. Next one's from Macy. All right, sorry, Macy.
I'm too tall. Have you seen any kind of like polar bears or just any land animals just walking around while you're clearing ice or just floating around?
I had a hard time hearing that one.
She just asked if you've seen any kind of like polar bears or land animals
Oh.
while you've been floating around or ice breaking.
Here in the lakes, no, we have not seen any polar bears, but sometimes we see deer out on the ice. We saw some coyotes the other day. Lots of bald eagles in the area lately. That's been a big change lately. The ships in the Arctic do get to see polar bears, but here in the lakes, it's mostly deer and small animals.
All right, and our third question is from Solon. All right, come on up, Solon. Okay, go ahead, nice and loud.
What is the strangest thing that you're allowed to disclose?
About
where, like, what is the strangest thing you've seen while you're on a boat?
What's the strangest thing I've seen? Huh? Not sure. Nothing's really poking out at me. Strange wise, we saw a snowy owl once, which was kind of cool. We were in Burlington, and that was kind of neat to see a snowy owl down this far south. I didn't realize they were this far south. But yeah, not. That's about. I can't think of anything. Sorry, that was a good question. I think everything is probably pretty normal because it's all different every day.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And it looks like we have one more class that might have some questions for us. Good morning. Well, it doesn't look like we can hear you guys. You guys can also just put some questions in the chat if you'd like. We can't hear you. Sorry. Oh, it looks like we can't hear you with the mic. So if you want to just put your questions in the chat, we can bring them up on screen and answer them. Well, Ms. LeBlanc, I know you had some more students wanting to ask some questions. If you guys wanted to come up and ask them, if you remember what they were.
Yeah, they're just on their way now.
Perfect.
Okay.
Is there any like type of like whales or something, like killer whales and all that, like that eat other fish and all that?
Out on the ocean, yes. Here in the Great Lakes, the biggest fish I know of in the Great Lakes is sturgeons, and they're pretty rare.
Is there any orcas that eat seals?
Maybe on the West Coast. Here in the Great Lakes, we don't have any whales in the Great Lakes.
How many boats are normally sent to each lake?
I'm sorry?
How many boats are normally sent to each lake?
How many boats are sent to each lake?
Oh, to each lake? So here in Coast Guard, we've got 2 large vessels and 9 search and rescue vessels.
Wow. Okay.
What's your least favorite thing to do?
What's my least favorite thing to do? Ooh. That's a good one. What do I not like to do, guys? What? I got 2 of my crew members here. I had to ask them because I'm sure they hear me complain about it all the time. My least favorite thing to do, to be honest, as much as ice breaking looks fun, sometimes that's not very fun.
Cool. Okay, Caitlin, last one.
How many ships did you have to rescue that got stuck in the ice?
This year, we've had to go rescue about 4 of them so far. A lot of times what we do is we try and schedule escorts, so we're already with them and we break the path for them as they follow behind. So, but we did have to come out. There was 3 of them that were stuck in the river on another escort, and we had to come out and give them a hand.
So they try to be proactive so it doesn't happen. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys very much. Well, and we did get quite a few other questions in the chat, but since we're at time, we'll pass them on to Captain Trombley, and hopefully we can get some answers back for you guys. But yeah, so thank you everyone for those great questions. And if you want to learn more about the Adopt a Ship program, please visit our website that's on the screen here. If you didn't get a chance to ask your question or you think of one later, there's a form on the website as well where you can submit some questions and we'll pass them on to the presenters as well. So you can also access some classroom learning activities and recordings of this event and past events. And thank you, teachers and students, and thank you, Captain Trombley, very much for being here. We really appreciate you joining us and all the work that you do to keep Canadian waters safe. So thank you and hope to see you again soon. Bye, everyone.
Thanks.